I was talking to my friend Oliver, and we were talking about markets generally. And Oliver's been in the markets for a very, very long time. Um, I'm not saying that he's old or anything, so if you're watching this, that's not what I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is that he's had way more experience, in markets trading than I have. I'm certainly not a trader. Every time I trade, I know my lane. I know that I'm not a good short-term trader. Oliver is. So we were talking about markets, and he said something to me which was quite fascinating. He said he remembers the time where the dot-com bubble was happening, right? And I was like in my teens at this point. The dot-com bubble was happening, and there was nothing called a circuit breaker in the markets at that point. So what that means is that you could have a stock list at $10, it can run up to $60, take a dip down to $40, run back up to $250, take a big dip down to $180, and then take another final push to $300, all in the space of a day. Right? Now we have circuit breakers in the market where if a stock moves by a certain percentage, you're going to stop that because it is not healthy for the market, right? You need to figure out what's actually going on here, and it allows space for that to happen. That's what keeps U.S. capital markets good and out of the cowboy days of the dot-com bubble, right? So they learned something and they readjusted the market to reflect what was going on and people taking advantage of it and causing manipulation and stuff like that. So they put circuit breakers in place, right? Because you need to figure out why the hell does everyone want this thing? And sometimes you're not going to be able to figure that out before the price runs up another ridiculous amount. And then it busts because whales start selling, etc., etc. So there's no circuit breakers in the market with Bitcoin, right? There's no circuit breakers in the market with Bitcoin. Because how do you create a circuit breaker, right? The biggest circuit breaker to Bitcoin is going to be the ETF. That's as far as you can go because the ETF is only going to be able to buy during US market hours. So the furthest that you can go with a circuit breaker for Bitcoin is an ETF. And even then, it's not really a circuit breaker, right? You're not like stopping trading for a certain period of time in order to find out what the hell's going on. It's just, we're just not buying because we only buy during US live market hours. So the fact that Bitcoin doesn't have a circuit breaker is pretty important for you if you're watching this, because what that means is that as as I've been talking about this Bank of America bull market multiple, it's now being proven right because when that fake ETF news came out and suddenly the price jumped up overnight and then it came back down, or during the day and then it came back down, what you saw was that less than $1 billion of action moved the market cap up by close to $60 billion. Now, what that tells you is that the bull market multiple that I've been talking about, that people keep saying is wrong, it can't be like that, I believe Willy Woo, I think it must be 3-to-1, it's all horseshit, right? Because I don't believe that $20 billion went into the Bitcoin market cap and it went into Bitcoin in 4 hours off of a fake Cointelegraph tweet. I don't believe that. And yet, the market went up by $60 billion. The total market valuation of Bitcoin went up by $60 billion. So I don't believe that, or rather, I'm more emboldened in my confidence around what the bull market multiple is. It is certainly not 3-to-1. I don't know if it's 118-to-1, but it's certainly higher than 3-to-1, significantly higher than 3-to-1. So what that tells you is that if the multiple is what it is and what I've been saying it is, and in addition to that, there's no circuit breaker, what it means is that this could run away from you a lot faster than you think because there's no one keeping a tab on the game, right? There's no one saying, okay, let's just wait. Let's wait and see what happens. Let's wait for the circuit breaker to kick in. Let's take a breather here. Let's do some analysis. You can't do that here because the price could just run and run and run. And even if the U.S. had a circuit breaker and let's say the president issued an executive order for 4 hours, no one's allowed to sell any Bitcoin to anyone, any of these exchanges, and that's pretty unrealistic. But let's say that happened. Well, you still got Asia open. right? You still got Europe open. You still got all these. You got Middle East open. You still got Russia open. You still got China open. You still got all these other powerhouse nations that are still open, right? There's no way you can have a circuit breaker on the Bitcoin market, and that's why for you it's extremely important, because you could wake up one day and suddenly the price has just gone completely away from you. That's a reality with Bitcoin. Right? It's not like any other stock that's being traded. There's a reality that the price could just run away from you. And while that's happening, everyone's trying to sit around mentally masturbate around what's going to happen if the ETF doesn't happen, if that doesn't happen. What if it does happen? Right? What if it does happen and suddenly there is a $50,000 daily candle on Bitcoin? Right? What is your plan in that instance? Which is why Bitcoin's not the speculative asset that you trade. You buy it, you secure it, and then you have another portion of your portfolio if you're a trader or you like taking speculative positions like I do because I'm trained in that. That's what I do. But Bitcoin is just Bitcoin. It stays there. It doesn't move. Nothing happens to it. That's how it's designed, because I don't know when things are going to change. And the price could run away from me quite far, because right now you've got all these banks putting restrictions on how much money you can send. So let's imagine the ETF gets approved. Then you decide that you want to jump in. Now you go to Coinbase, you open an account. It takes 3 days to approve an account. That account gets approved. Now it takes you another 48 hours to wire your funds into it. The funds hit, and then they go, we need some more proof of funds. So then you have to send them proof of funds. Now you're dealing with a 7 to 10 day process, not including weekends, where you're not buying Bitcoin, right? Whereas because there's no circuit breaker, the market could do $50,000 a day candle, and you could be sitting at $150,000 Bitcoin because of the demand. And you might sound, that sounds crazy. Well, let me break it down to you. The ex-managing director of BlackRock in London said quite openly that he believes that there'll be $200 billion of demand coming into purchasing demand coming into Bitcoin within 3 years of the ETF being approved. Well, if that happens, there's 756 trading days in 3 years, and if you spread out the amount of money that is, assuming that it's all even, right? It's $192 million a day of purchasing demand. So what does that mean? $192 million a day of purchasing demand, which means that the price has to the price of Bitcoin has to reflect that based on the supply. Now, if you take that $192 million a day, what you realize is that at around 25,000, Fundstrat released some research, and they said the equilibrium price of 25 or 27,000 was being maintained by just $25 million a day of purchasing. Now, if that remains true, if that holds, if whatever their calculation is holds, and you have $192 million a day of additional purchasing, the price of Bitcoin from 27,000 needs to move to $192,000 a coin just to maintain equilibrium purchasing with the new capital coming in on a daily basis. That doesn't obviously include people sending their Bitcoin to the exchange in order to sell. That doesn't include anything else. It just assumes that the formula for equilibrium price action is correct. And if you add another $192 million a day of coming into $192 million a day coming into it, the price of Bitcoin would need to go to $198,000 a coin in order to maintain that equilibrium level. So this is getting very serious, because that 198,000, you could be there in 2 days with Bitcoin. Right? There's no limit on how big the daily candle can be. It's not like, oh, if Bitcoin moves 50%, we got to halt trading, see what's going on, pause the market, make sure everything's okay, there's nothing illegal or nefarious going on, right? This is part of the reason why, the SEC's had an issue with approving an ETF, because they know they can't control the base layer underlying asset. So this is coming, right? We're getting to the point where the ETF is now listed on the DTCC. The BlackRock ETF is now listed on DTCC. I'm expecting more of those ETFs to get listed on the DTCC. And yeah, this is moving forward, which is why time is running out, which is why the fact that there's no circuit breaker on Bitcoin is important for you. It's not important to institutions, right? It's not important to institutions, because institutions are dealing with 15 to 20% a year returns. So if they buy Bitcoin at $1 million a coin and it gives them a 20% compound annual growth rate, they don't care, right? That's better. That's outperforming everything else that they do. So they don't care, right? You should care because you're the one that's going to get screwed where you're trying to, join the $10 a month DCA gang and trying to DCA into Bitcoin when you got the cash sitting there, and then you're just going to end up with less Bitcoin than you had. Right? DCAing sort of works in this weird time period of a bear market because the price is consistently heading down. But when the bull market starts, it's not time to DCA anymore, right? And in fact, all the research that's been done on DCA versus lump sum purchase always wins over the long term, right? So my point here is this. The fact that there is no circuit breaker on Bitcoin is very, very important as to why you need to understand the urgency of this, because you only have one chance. If you don't take the advantage of buying Bitcoin now at $34,000 or whatever it is right now, it's already gone from 27 to 34,000, right? If you don't take that opportunity to secure your position, and let's say an ETF gets approved tomorrow and the candle goes straight up over the next couple of days to $150,000, $190,000, what are you going to do? Now, I'm not saying that is what's going to happen, but what I'm saying is the numbers that I've presented to you support that $198,000 Bitcoin price, right? If the demand is as what the ex-managing director of BlackRock thinks it is, then you would have to see, above $150,000 Bitcoin to maintain equilibrium on the day that the ETF starts trading, because the price would you just have too much demand coming in, right? So the point here is you need to decide what you're doing. You need to get serious now. This is now getting very, very serious. The ETF is now listed, right? It's now, BlackRock has said they started seeding the ETF, which means they're going to put a little bit of money, start buying some Bitcoin to create a liquidity pool in the ETF for people to buy from. And this is happening. The question is, are you happening, right? Where's your brain at on this, right? Where is the people that you love? Where is their brain at on this? Right? And this is why it's very, very important that you subscribe, because the faster you subscribe, the faster the video gets shared to people that might not have seen this, that might not understand what's going on here, right? Faster it gets shared, faster you share the video, share the link to friends, family members, etc. You can download the video, chop it up, do whatever the hell you want to do with it. I just want to get this message out there because the time is running out. Because the truth is this. If you don't buy Bitcoin at $34,000, the ETF comes out tomorrow, institutions start piling in, and then the price goes up to $198,000 because there's no circuit breakers in the market, your children will pay the price. It won't be yours. You'll be sitting around still drinking your beer or whatever the fuck you like doing, claiming that you're so smart because you bought a little bit of Bitcoin, but you'll miss the boat. And then your children will pay for it, and their children will pay for it because they'll never be able to buy the same amount of Bitcoin that you could buy now by spending 5 hours doing some research on what Bitcoin is, how it works, why it's important to you, right? Remember, this is not like real estate where you can just print another 100,000 homes over the next 20 years, right? This is not like that. You're never going to be able to get this chance ever again. And so I think it's very, very important that you take this seriously. The fact that there's no circuit breakers in the market should scare the shit out of you. And if it doesn't, you don't understand what we're dealing with. You don't understand scarcity. You don't understand the value of scarcity, and you have not taken the time to understand it. But the problem is BlackRock does. The problem is Fidelity does. The problem is Cathie Wood does. The problem is the SEC does. So you're the one that's falling behind, not them. You're the one that's falling behind, sitting on Twitter, Twitter fingering with everyone, thinking that you're happy owning $5,000 of Bitcoin when you should have been trying to figure out how to get to 1 Bitcoin right now. Because now the lions have woken up and they smell blood. And the ETF is around the corner. It is literally registered on the site before it goes live. It has a ticker symbol. It's registered on the site in the organization which clears the trades for the NASDAQ. This is happening. And if you're sitting there not at 1 Bitcoin yet, you should be panicking. This should be panic inducing for you at this point. So that's the point I wanted to make. There is no circuit breaker in the Bitcoin markets. It's worldwide. It's instant. There's no way to control it. And when the institutional demand does start kicking in, it's going to kick in heavy, and you are going to miss out. You are going to wake up one day and there's going to be a candle that you've never seen before, that you never imagined before. And that day you will know that you let your children down. And I don't want any one of my viewers to experience that. So please subscribe. And remember, despite the institutions coming in, despite there being no circuit breakers, there are still only 3 rules to Bitcoin. It's step number 1, you buy Bitcoin. Step number 2, you shut the fuck up. And step number 3, you get fabulously wealthy.